Hello, is this thing on? Oh, hang on. There we go. We should have audio, and people should be able to hear each other at some point. Hello, is this thing on?
Good.
Okay, I just heard you say hello, is this thing on, so I guess the stream lag has finally resolved itself.
Yeah.
There you are, in the center with a sheep.
We should have audio. People should be able to... That's my sheep at some point.
I heard me say good,
Okay, I
but
just
rather
heard you say
loud as
hello,
well.
is this
So
thing
there we
on,
go.
so I guess
Hello,
the stream
everyone.
lag has finally resolved itself.
Hey everyone!
Yo.
I'll just get rid of all the windows I now have open from trying to make this work.
Oh, did you get the message I left on the staff channel earlier concerning certain issues?
No.
Okay.
I think we will have to pick that up later because I have no idea what that's about. So
I'll
anyway.
I'll drop a message again later. Never mind.
Oh, apparently I'm
Yeah.
the quietest one. Let me.
Yes, you are.
Wonder if my mic's on the wrong setting. That was probably a bit loud. Apologies.
That's right, that's alright.
Mm-hmm.
Can you hear me now?
We can. Can the stream? Is anybody
That is
actually
better on
watching?
the stream, yeah.
Okay.
At least I think it is. Shall we get this thing started?
Yeah, because we might be at it in a while.
Yeah.
The good news is we're in Goldenrod City. The bad news is we're in Goldenrod City.
And it is time for us to have a cow.
Man?
Oh, there must be other
Man,
stuff that we can do to get a
Whitney,
bit more experience
whatever.
before fighting Whitney, surely.
There
Can't
probably
even
is.
remember what
And
level.
don't call her Shirley. Sorry, I absolutely had to.
You cannot not, really.
Yeah, exactly. I mean, even the games themselves did that in some bizarre side quest cutscene in Black and White 2.
Of course, it was
Lesser did
Black
it.
and White too.
Yeah, that sounds like exactly the game for that.
I think it was
It's
Lesser that did it.
the only game in the series with a writing team. I do love how it is this game, isn't it, where they finally changed the. Sorry, this is a slight tangent, but speaking of writing, where you go to a Pokemon Center and you heal your Pokemon, and they don't say, "Was it? We hope to see you again." They say something. They say something like "Come back anytime" instead, and then in the very next game, it goes back to "We hope to see you again."
Yeah, we hope that your Pokemon just die.
Just in time for what? A dress-up shop?
Oh yeah, I forgot about that.
It isn't this game that has Pikachu Libre in it, is it?
No.
No, that was
No.
Omega Ruby Alpha Sapphire having the thing.
Yeah, they had the cosplay choose.
What is this for then?
It's for the it's not the Pokathlon, is it? It's something else.
I think it's a it's some leftover from the Super Contests on Sinnoh. I don't remember what they did with them in this thing. So they did something.
Bless you, whoever that was.
It was me! Somehow managed to get so loud that it went through Alex. Like...
I'm not sure about take pictures with your team, but you do get to dress as a Team Rocket member as a plot element later.
Ah, yeah, I forgot about that.
That's fun.
It was basically a wet dream for half of the Pokemon fandom that have been demanding a Team Rocket game.
I do remember I was saying to Dem earlier, they could probably short circuit that a little bit by just having like this would be, you know, involve a huge change to the way Pokemon works because it would involve them having a plot that wasn't the same thing as every other game. But it would be quite fun if you had a plot involving various different factions that you could join as part of the plot.
I mean, Pokemon Colosseum is kinda almost that.
Yeah,
Touches
but
on
it's
it.
yeah, I suppose so.
The Elder Scrolls Pokemon.
Well, I was thinking Fire Emblem Fates, but yeah, that too. Because Fates has the thing where it has, you know, the good guys and the bad guys, and they're not at all. It's just one's blue and one's red.
Hans, are we the baddies?
Yeah, you get exactly that, and yeah, you wouldn't be kind of wicked and evil because being a children's card game, you'd have to, you know, be redeemed at the end and all that, or just be.
And then it turns out the real villain was the
Hypnosis is
friend
doing
you
what
made
Hypnosis
along the
does.
way.
Yeah, but like you have all that, and you have like the kind of.
Is that the one where you turn into a really broken-legged dragon, or is that?
I think that is. I haven't played it, but that sounds about right. That sounds like exactly what it. Yeah, that sounds right. At least I think it's the one with Corrin, isn't it? And Corrin does that in Smash. So
Yeah. To be fair, Corrin's broken horse, dragon leg, whatever form, kind of reminds me of the design aesthetic behind Sinnoh's Legendaries, kind of. It's like a really weird relative of Arceus. Except it's not stuck in brackets. No one should be on this point. Yet.
yes, that's another gating mechanism.
My Pokemon got a haircut. Watch how strong it is. It's a licky tongue. What did you cut off your licky tongue, you sick bastards?
Swear.
Does that really count?
Yeah.
Yes.
Yeah.
Doesn't matter, it's fine. I do love the Mareep's name.
Bah.
I was just thinking that.
It's a pity it's being rubbish.
My brain is saying it in Stephen Fry's voice.
Okay, fair enough.
From ba to boo.
Oh, come on. Hypnosis has not hit once this entire game so far.
Yeah. It does that when you're the one using it.
Pretty much.
Except when someone else uses it, it hits every time.
It's the It's the RPG death spell. Curse. For
Yeah.
lack of better definition.
Hang on.
What is it?
This is the game that I'm pretty certain this changed in later generations, but you can't affect something that already has a status with another status.
That's
You could never do that, and I don't think you could. You will be able to do that. That's one of the reasons that people put things like toxic orbs on things like Reuniclus, is so they will not get. So they'll be immune to status effects, basically.
I thought
Wait,
you
doesn't
could
it-
override it in one of them.
not that I know of.
Yeah, non-volatile status conditions. You can only have one at a time.
Yeah, non-volatile being sleep, paralysis, burn, and freeze, I think.
Yeah, and paralyzed, obviously.
And paralyzed, sorry, yeah.
The ones that get a little special tag.
Yes, so stuff like confusion can stack. Because it's a volatile state of condition. Basically, anything that goes away when you switch out can be stacked.
Pretty much, yeah.
Oh, go away, Joey.
Joey.
Oh God. That's pretty much exactly what we expected.
Well, you just said that made me think of a Super Sentai show with Ratata.
I know, right?
Oh God.
Triple percentage ratata!
Yes!
Now I'm just picturing 5 Ratata doing the Ginyu Force pose.
Now that I want to see.
It has to be a mix of normal and Alolan Rattata, though.
Oh, definitely.
Oh yeah, yeah. Maybe just like one Raticate in the middle. Ooh.
Oh no.
Whoa. What?
That's-
yeah.
That didn't work.
Oh no.
New.
Oh no.
Do you need my work screen?
A bit late for that now.
Let's try turning it off and on again.
Hopefully
Hey,
you
with us,
didn't just
folks.
kind of... Yeah, hopefully that actually, That's a new one, for sure.
There we go.
That is a new one.
What basically happened there is Mari melted because it's 5 million degrees here.
Well,
That was a thing.
yeah, it was. Then again, if I manage to get through Hot Hope's gym with graphical glitches all the time, we manage to work our way out of that too.
I like how she takes pleasure in your Pokemon not liking it.
Oh, this is the dress-up thing.
Actually, I think that's the thing, the massage thing, the thing where you raise their happiness by giving them a haircut or something.
Nah, that was the last one.
Oh, okay. There's a stream lag after all.
Yeah, the massage thing's in quite a few different games, because I know it's in
It
like,
is, yeah.
the Gen 5 games as well.
Let's make Ghastly pretty.
This should be fun. They didn't put seals in this game, did they?
Nope, because they're that word that Stell said earlier.
Yeah. Pretty
Yes.
much.
Seals are a perfect example of the sort of feature that was so good it just couldn't last. They just had to get rid of it, even though there was no real reason for them to do so.
It was actually such a good thing.
I mean,
Yeah.
to be perfectly honest, you could do some pretty silly things with seals. I actually, I think it was Racy. Yeah, it was Racy. That actually had a chatot with a ball that just first the letters "Hey lady," and that's what she made it strike. It's like, "Hey lady!"
Not entirely sure what you're trying to do to this poor Ghastly.
I made it look pretty.
And culturally sensitive. Oh, nice work. Let's display the photo right away. Oh, but it needs to have a title.
And the title must be restricted to very particular phrases.
I know, right? And you can only use one word, right?
What was the Feebas phrase?
I don't think it was in this particular.
I'm just trying to remember because it was the same sort of pick from a load of stupid bits of words thing.
I think that was in. Wasn't that in like?
It was Ruby and
Genera-
Sapphire.
Yeah, in Ruby and Sapphire, basically what the Feebas focus. The thing with Feebas was that the 6 tiles in which it appears in that particular Carvana-infested river changed based on, it used the trendy saying in Dewford as a seed for its RNG.
There was some specific phrase to activate it, wasn't there?
No, there wasn't, as far as I remember.
You're thinking of something else, possibly. I get what.
Yeah, there were things you could activate using specific sentences. It was usually like mystery gifts and.
There was something in game as well, where you did have to ask.
I honestly don't.
There was
know what you're talking about.
something like everyone lets Pokemon or
everyone happy Wi-Fi connection. Usually,
that's the one.
Was, and there was
right.
secret connection too in one of the games, which actually activated the machine that you need to transfer the special event Sparkle Dogs between Generation 4 and Generation 5.
Ah, okay.
And the Cerebi, it was the Cerebi Zorua thing.
I knew there was a thing.
Yeah, some weird unlockable nonsense in Black and White. But in the other games, it was just things that unlocked mystery gifts. And there was like another... There was another thing that... I think it involved the Berry Master, where if you had a special phrase, they would give you some particular berries. I think it was Cool Latios in one of the games, and something else, Latias in the other. And I think it was like the other mod, the one you could get in that particular game. So it was like some kind of a trading incentive. I'm not even sure. It's been forever since I've looked into this.
I think the phrase that you said earlier is the one I was trying to remember.
Yeah.
Because it was suitably stupid.
I actually unlocked that silly thing when I was doing my off-screen grinding in Platinum. I mean, it's completely pointless now because mystery gifts are dead for this particular generation. But,
All these streams have meant that I've gotten slightly obsessed with replaying Pokemon Black recently.
Good.
It's just one of the many games that I didn't finish. So
It's probably a shorter list to list off the ones you did.
yeah, probably. I can list games that I finished.
List of
It's
games.
just they won't all be Pokemon games.
Yes, the list of Pokemon games that you finished also happens to be a list of Pokemon games.
oh dear.
I'm sorry.
To be perfectly honest, I mean, the Pokemon games do have this problem where you've played one, you've to some various degree of for some value of you've played them all.
Yeah, there is.
Why do I keep tripping over my words tonight? Ugh.
Oh, I've just noticed your trainer card's out of date, Alex.
Yeah, the sheet ain't in it,
It shouldn't
so-
be, because that's not the one I've got saved.
Well,
Yeah,
think-
OBS is silly and doesn't update properly when you reload it. So it will be simple to fix. Just point to the right one.
Yeah. Trainer card.
yeah, right
Yeah.
now it's showing
It's got the egg.
yeah, right now it's got teeth, Venus, whatever the hell we named the Whooper.
It's
So,
missing the Marie,
And Toby.
Yeah.
missing the Onyx.
and Hoot Hoot and Ghastly.
Yeah, just saving correct one over it, because... Oh, that is the one that's saved. Oh, weird.
Yeah, I think that what happens is the way we've got basically I think that what happens is that it automatically loads a trainer card which is like saved in the overlay itself, rather than immediately updating from the thing. Because I've noticed I've had the same problem with mine. It just kind of yoinks the training card from the overlay rather than from the folder where I usually keep it.
We'll need to have a
So
look
basically
into
Twitch
what we can do
shenanigans.
about doing a proper version.
Yeah.
Yes.
I mean, to be fair, it kind of works for what we need it to, but it could be interesting to have some kind of a thing that updates better.
In answer to Katie's question, blue, yellow, silver, and sapphire, and I think that's it.
Are those the ones that you completed?
Yes. It's a very short list. I might have also completed Diamond, but I can't remember. It was ages ago if I did.
Diamond was a slog, so good for you if you managed it.
That might be why I stopped completing them.
Diamond.
I've probably
have
played Diamond and Pearl
flashbacks.
the most out of any of the non-Gen 1 games, weirdly enough.
I was going to say, I played Blue about 5 times over.
I think I played Diamond about 3 times before I actually managed to get a proper DS. And I kind of have Vietnam flashbacks too. The first time I played the game on an actual DS. Because... Mischievous. I should probably point this out. Basically, I had most of the team for my actual DS run of Diamond kind of bred for me, with the gracious help of a certain Katie. And the only thing that I didn't have set up was I figured I didn't have a 6th member yet, and I was like, you know, I might as well actually run a Mischievous. So I attempted to breed one with a proper nature, and the RNG just really, really hated me that day.
I've just noticed this guy is called Donald.
Absolutely hated me. And I basically just sort of sat there and hatched a metric Frelton of mischievous eggs that were either the wrong nature or the wrong gender or just the wrong something. And
Wrong.
yes, exactly. And basically it was kind of me sitting there completely losing my mind and Katie watching me slowly descend to madness. And when I finally managed to get one that was appropriately awesome, I actually ended up naming her Dementia. For appropriate reasons indeed. I've had a few Pokemon that did that to me and just kind of really made me want to punch something in the face. I think the last time it was Trapinch in Y2. I just spent way too long trying to find one at all. They, for some reason, just refused to appear, even though I was in the right place in the hole. Yeah, when I finally did catch one, it was just perfect in the capacity I needed it to be, and I named it Cheogoraf. Again.
Lovely. I've seen some people on the Pokemon Go Leads Facebook group call Trapinch a different name by swapping out the first letter.
Oh dear.
Yep.
They are wrong and should be shunned.
I mean, to be fair, Flygon is amazing, but the rest of the line has its moments.
I agree.
Pokemon Go being Pokemon
I mean,
Go.
I
it's less
kind
useful
of
than
like
that.
Trapinch on account of just being a weird, cute. That's the thing with this particular line. There's a lot of different ways to actually interpret it, and I've basically noticed that it basically sort of goes with people who interpret the things as more insect-like, and people who interpret them as more dragon-like. And, you know, I've seen some really cool-looking bug Flygons, but I can't see them as, you know, actual bugs in my mind. I tend to picture them as this weird, convergently evolved something. Which is... well... I like the way I draw them, but I've acknowledged the fact it's not the most creative way to do it, I guess. It's like I see Racy's particular take on Flygon, it's like... well damn, that is awesome. But it's just not the way I see Flygon.
Bike, 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 yay!
Bicycle, bicycle, bicycle. Exactly.
Bicycle.
Ow.
Bicycle. There's a mental image. A sheep. Aha.
Yeah, I think that entire building is kind of useless now.
It
It'll
is.
do literally nothing.
Wow! It's flipping nothing!
Remember, kids, gambling is cool.
Caveat, gambling is not cool.
It's the best, though.
Mind you, they did kind of completely and utterly scrap it in order to introduce some kind of a really awful Minesweeper knockoff.
Well, they got rid of it because Europe didn't like it, didn't they?
Yeah, because the EU is being the EU about things.
Well, it was Peggy, but yeah. I think they threatened it with like a 15 or even an 18 rating, I think, if they...
It's
Well, the good
absolutely
news
daft,
is
that's what it is, but yeah.
We can do it again. Yay!
That's true. But at what cost?
Nigel Farage says that we can gamble as much as we like in Pokemon. It's alright.
Oh god.
Oh
I mean,
dear.
to be perfectly fair to the Brexit idiots, considering the complete nonsense that the European Union is trying to pass right now concerning, you know, various copyright shenanigans.
Oh, that got killed.
Well, this is the thing, though.
But now-
The EU, the Parliament, rightly killed it because people held their hands up and said, "Hang on, guys, the people that represent me,
thanks,
I don't
Zach.
really think this is a good idea." And then the representatives went, "Oh, okay, you're right. Let's maybe not do
Which
that."
never happens in things like the UK.
Well,
Or the
doesn't
US
happen
for that matter.
in our country. But yes, it's almost like the EU is made up of elected representatives.
And vaguely same people. Holy Zark, that is
Wow.
news.
Wouldn't necessarily go that far,
I
but
said that's why I said vaguely.
I was gonna say, yeah. Very vague.
I mean, you know, politicians are as politicians do, but
you know.
Can
yeah,
I,
pretty much.
Can I just highlight how stupid this particular quiz is? Because the
Yes.
very last question asks you a question that you cannot possibly answer without the bloody radio card that it's trying to give you for answering the quiz right.
Sounds about right.
You complete apricot. Oh god, I was just reminded of this video I've run into of I just remembered this video that I ran into where David Tennant reads a bunch of those tweets about you know, Scottish Twitter reacting to Trump.
Oh, I've seen that, yeah.
It's amazing.
Link this to me at some point. That sounds awesome.
It is excellent. Speaking of Scottish Twitter, Scotland in general reacted as well as we could have hoped to
Oh yeah.
the state visit, shall we say.
It's not a state visit.
Sorry, not state visit, the working visit.
Well, it is a state because the
Well,
world is in a state if it managed to let
It's
this
not a
thing.
state because the Queen didn't throw him a banquet. I'm assuming because she bluntly refused.
I know it is.
And also because I think, well, there were protests anyway. They would have been worse had he actually spent any time in London whatsoever. Which he avoided because we love him, apparently. Or so he says.
That balloon was a glorious thing.
It was in Edinburgh today.
Yeah, it's going on a world trip now.
Glorious.
Good.
I just wanted to sort of casually stalk him like a really, really bad horror movie monster. Just kind of,
I think that's
out the window, and there it is.
Basically,
Sort
like
of
the prisoner.
lurking behind the. Yeah, exactly.
I'm pretty sure that's what's going to happen, to be honest. Apart from in America, obviously.
Well, once it gets to America, they'll shut it down, won't they? So.
Well, shoot it down. They also won't allow it in the first place because they
They're
don't have
trying
free
to
speech
build
in
a
America.
wall and have the balloon try to pay for it. Looks like stream chat is on that part of the internet again.
Cannot let you have a watering can because it might be too dangerous. What? What? Let me just walk around with my sheep that electrocutes people and try not to get any water on myself from my little squirrel crocodile thing. Oh no, everything's gone mental again.
I think it was a turtle, wasn't it? I mean...
Oh god!
Oh dear. We're having some very interesting graphical glitches for some reason. I'd say
I blame the heat.
Yeah, I do too.
You know, considering the area where we just kind of glitched, I guess things got a bit too intense for it. Oh dear. Truly.
Oh hey, it's the name reader.
Oh.
Oh, excellent.
He gets tent now.
What shall we name Togepi?
Did we actually name it? I mean, did...
We also need to give Hoot Hoot a name.
Oh. Okay. Cahoots.
Chat, help us out here.
Leg. Egg.
Leg.
Scrambled.
Scrambled.
Scrambled is good.
I approve of the scrambled.
Do you have enough characters for Scrambled?
Yes.
Yeah.
Scrambled is 8 characters. You definitely have enough.
You'll get, yeah, if you can't, just do Scramble, which is could even be funnier because it hides the meaning a little bit.
Did any of the later games actually add a QWERTY keyboard rather than ABCD?
Yes.
Good.
I'm pretty sure the 3DS ones do because the 3DS ones use the system keyboard rather than...
Fair enough.
The
That
Switch
makes
will
sense.
as well.
Well, naturally.
I think there's. I thought you could switch to it in this game even, but maybe they added that later on.
No, this is it. The only keyboard.
Oh, okay.
And they actually had to build a system for it in this particular system. The 3DS already had something that's a bit smarter, complete with its own internal, absolutely asinine sensor filters.
Need a bird name.
I'm pretty sure that the swear filters in the 3DS's internal whatever are pretty much coded by the same people who did the swear filters in Twitch. You know, the ones that continuously chase Nem for saying things like badge.
Yeah, that was weird.
Yeah. Anyway, yeah, the only name that comes to mind for this thing is Cahoots, although I'm pretty sure that someone can think of a better option.
I like that one, actually.
My mind just draws a blank, so yeah.
Cahoots works. Cahoots it is.
Everyone is fond of owls. Except for mice and shrews and Simon Cowell. Yeah, I'm having flashbacks to like early 2000s internet. Is it early 2000s? When did they release that?
I don't know even.
Kind of hard to follow everything that Weeble has done over the years. He's done a lot.
He has. The funny thing is, I'm grinding up the team as I'm talking to you here, and I'm currently fighting with Weeble.
Perfect timing.
Yep.
I don't think I need to do any more unnecessary grinding for now. We didn't have that much issue with Fantina. Mostly her minions, if I recall correctly.
Yeah, I think you're fine. I think you're fine for now. I just need to balance out the team,
Well,
to be honest.
yeah, naturally, it makes sense.
I need something to take down Sigilif,
Oh yeah.
which...
Sorry. Got distracted.
I love
That's okay, you got distracted by the thing we're supposed to be looking at.
Yes, the cute fire type.
I love
I
it
like
when it
these
roars
things.
out the thing that's going to kill it.
Oh boy.
Or not.
It just needed a while to get ready to go.
Believe you miss.
Double
Well, I guess that trainer had a sunglasses rocky relationship. Yeah. Sorry. Just that was intentionally awful and had to happen.
This is fine. Only the worst puns for us.
This was
Yes.
not a double battle.
Yeah. For some reason they didn't do them a lot in this particular remake.
Oops.
Yeah. Behold, the shrew of the sun.
Ah! I keep hitting the A button too quickly.
Yeah, I've had a few moments of accidental double taps in my streams yesterday.
Yeah.
Solution, use the stylus.
Not really an option.
Then you're doing it wrong.
Kinda. I mean, I guess.
Oops. That's not when you want to do that.
Oh dear. Meryl. That line is just... I have issues with that line. Like,
But it's peekaboo.
honestly, I will admit that, like, you know, when they first revealed it, was like, I mostly had an issue with it because it did look a lot like Pikachu and was like, oh god, another overrated mouse thing. But then I heard its voice.
Right.
Generally saw how it acted with when they introduced it for the first time. And it was like... What is this feeling? So sudden and new? Etc. Loathing. Unadulterated loathing. Meryl was basically my Electivire until Electivire became a thing.
Ah! I see.
I was going to say, I thought Meryl was great in the anime.
You would. I mean, to be perfectly fair, we kind of never did agree on a lot of Pokemon. Mostly because, you know, I like my creatures looking like creatures, and you think that them looking like creatures sucks all the cuteness out of them, so...
Only the cute ones.
Anyway, yeah, I mean... I just... Honestly, you know, I had to admit that, his face, Tracy's Meryl was kind of tolerable. Still had a horrible voice, and I still wanted to punch it in the face, but, well, at least it wasn't a bug. I'm sorry, I had to reference that. That was one of the stupidest things the anime has done ever. For those of us who don't actually remember the Orange Islands because they weren't alive at the time, because I'm pretty sure that we have people like that in the fan base today.
So weird.
I know, right?
I think we said that yesterday, didn't we?
Yeah, we did.
So just every now and again, roughly once a day, we have to just sit and marvel at how old we are.
Yeah, we are old and have long beards.
I have
Yes,
a relevant
and that-
discussion for that to come. Carry on.
Oh, thanks for following, King Buddy.
I personally was old when your stars were young, but that's my catchphrase these days.
Ah!
No, wait.
Close enough. Oh, now it doesn't have a good design anymore.
No, it's a poodle.
Yeah.
Pink poodle sheep.
I love Mareep. I love Ampharos. I'm not a fan of Fluffy, to be honest.
Yeah, I can't blame you.
I don't really understand why it's pink.
I don't.
Actually,
because
It doesn't
There's
make
definitely-
sense.
It was supposed to be, actually. I mean, if you take a look at the original designs from like the Space World demo, Mareep had a pink palette too.
then
Ampharos
they
is the
fixed
only
it.
one that Ampharos is the only one that's like yellow. But yeah, the whole thing was pink. I think that wait a minute, I'm probably crossing the streams. I know that they mentioned at some point that I hate it when my brain runs too fast from my mouth. Okay, so there was this thing that they said in an interview once, that there was once a Pokemon design that was supposed to be vaguely based on Dolly, the clone sheep.
Oh yeah.
I think they've mentioned that it was supposed to be pink in some capacity, and then they removed it because it was too controversial, but I was thinking maybe, you know, it got recycled as Mareep or something, but the dates don't quite check out, because the Space World demo, as you know, Generation 2 was in development. When did they actually clone that sheep?
It was a while ago now.
1997?
No, she was born in 1996 and died in 2003. So it's possible that Marie could have been some vague inspiration, because, you know, the Space World demo was released in 1997, I think, or 1998.
I think it's entirely possible.
So yeah, they probably kind of intended to do something with that, and then they kind of recycle that particular vague concept as Marie, and then they kind of changed the colors because the pink didn't just work out. They just kind of got stuck with the design in the middle. I don't know. There was a lot more weird pink randomness in Generation 2's initial designs. I mean, I know I think Jumpluff was also supposed to be pink.
And a cat.
Yeah, that whole line was supposed to be a lot more cat-like, which, honestly, I actually like the original designs a lot more than what...
Yeah, it kind of loses something going from
There's
what it was to what it is now.
Yeah, it did.
I try
Then
not
again,
to.
it's-
I try not to hold it against what currently exists too much because stuff changes.
Yeah, I know, but it's still kind of sad because a few of the original designs were vastly better. I mean, honestly, you take a look at Proto Auxiliary and you realize what exactly they were going for there. It's like, oh, that's why it's an Oct tank.
Yeah, it finally
And
makes
it-
sense after 20 years.
I know, right? And you know, okay, I can sort of understand why they changed Rem Raid. Actually, that's another really cool thing I've kind of noticed. Rem Raid was never supposed to be a Remora.
Okay.
Rem Raid was supposed to be an Archerfish. I mean, even the original name of the creature has no references to Remoras whatsoever. And the species is, in general, a whole lot more like an Archerfish than a Remora. But I guess that when they had to, you know, sort of tone down the weapon element, you know, for their children, they were like, how do we make these things connected? And they were like, oh, hang on a moment. Octopi have suction cups. What kind of fish has a suction cup? Remora? Good enough, we're going with that. And then they kind of started sticking them to mantines, and then they forgot that happens.
No,
Which is
they,
sad
they
because I
forgot that
feel
that
it-
happened specifically in the one game where they tied the two together to make an actual thing out of them.
I know, right? And they never did it again ever since, which is, you know, I feel it kind of lost something because Mantine is a very simple design. I mean, it's... Then again, compared to what we lost to get it, I really, really love the thing that they eventually simplified into Mantine. It's just so much more of its own thing, its own creature. And I think, as you probably know, I have a massive thing for Pokemon that are like, you know, they're not exactly supposed to be a specific thing, but they're their own whatever. So things like Electabuzz and Magmar. This is one of the reasons that Magmar's sort of gradual shift from having a weird fire hose nozzle for a face to more duck beak sort of uninspired whatever the hell they were thinking with it, just kind of gets to me. And then they completely lost it when they evolved it into a fat Dragon Ball Z villain design reject with gun arms, because of course. Honestly,
Magmortar is
Generation
also awesome.
Yeah, that's another point where we're going to have to continue to agree to disagree forever. Of all the
Why would I not have a Ghastly?
of all of the why did they do it evolutions, I'm pretty sure my favorite one might have to be Rhyperior, actually. Which is weird, because it's not exactly one of those Pokemon that I use, but it looks like a Denju evolution. I can't stay mad at it because it looks like a Denju evolution.
Yeah, but why? Why?
the same
Why
reason-
Rhyperior? Why?
Yeah, that did.
I mean, why Electivire? Why Magmortar? Why
Yeah, but-
Tangrowth? Okay, Tangrowth makes more sense.
Those
have
actually
to
like
admit.
add moves and stats. Rhyperior literally adds 10 stats to attack and defense.
It also adds Solid Rock.
Yeah, but 10
And
10.
Could have been worse. Could have been 11. Ah, pure as your cow. Wait, Rhinoceros, actually. They have devolved the Yuko. Which is probably for the best. Oh, God. Just remembered I really do need to get back to work on Frameshift so I can actually eventually reach, that really frilled up thing I did for, Frameshift Miltank.
Oh?
It's a fighting type. And, it's basically Luchadere.
Okay, I like that.
It's kind of great, I have to admit. I've actually doodled it at some point because it was so stupid I had to get it out of my head.
I know what you mean.
Too many orbs.
Balls. Literally in this case. Oh, wait, wrong channel. This is where I meant to put it.
Right, so we still haven't talked about any of the news.
Yeah, go on then. I know you said you wanted to mention something.
Yeah. So the this year's movie came out this week.
Yes.
Which apparently is actually pretty good, which I'm not too surprised by, considering last year's movie was actually like an actually good movie. Don't watch
Was it really?
Yeah, well, it's an actual movie. There's a progression in it. Stuff happens beginning to end. It doesn't have to reset it all by the end of the movie, so that they can just pretend it never happened. So they get to actually tell a real story. The Marshadow part you can actually just forget about, but the rest of it...
Yeah. It's... my opinion for My Choose You is that it is half of an excellent film, and the other half is merchandising.
Yeah, the
Marshadow
part did not need to be there at all.
No. The whole back end of the movie, you know, needed to be replaced with something that involved actual plot.
Yeah.
But genuinely, I enjoyed it. You know, I ended up seeing it.
Still not sure I can actually watch it without kind of thinking, who the Lord thought this was a good idea? You know?
Yeah.
It's just...
I mean, I'm fine with it. I'm quite happy for them to take it and just take the original anime and just remake it into effectively a what if. What if it was set at a point where all of the Pokemon existed? What if we didn't just spend the entire time prattling around in Kanto with 2 gym leaders?
What if Ash Bepping died again? And this time Pikachu talked to him about it. Is it? I mean,
well, in
Ash dying
this is the new Ash.
Yeah, and this AU. Well, yeah, and this AU. I mean, the new Ash. This is like Ash number 3 by this point. How many Ashes are this ship anyway?
Well, anyways, you know, Pokemon like these alternate universes.
Yeah, but yeah, I mean, I can. Okay, here's one thing I kind of want to know because I actually am kind of vaguely interested in the new one. Can you watch the new one and completely disregard the events of the previous one? Because the previous one is kind of something I'd rather let remain in its own bizarre alcove.
Allegedly, obviously I haven't seen the film because I don't live in Japan. Allegedly you can.
It's the same as pretty much any other Pokemon.
Yeah.
I just want to see the Zappy Cat, to be perfectly honest. I mean, okay, and Lugia. I like Lugia, and I appreciate the thing being Lugia again. But I'm mostly in this for the Zappy Cat.
Yeah, I'm quite interested in watching this year's movie, but the real thing that we need to talk about is next year's movie.
Oh yeah, of course.
Yes.
Because at the end of this year's movie, there's a trailer for next year's, as there normally is, and in that trailer, it basically is Mewtwo Strikes Back.
Evolution.
Yeah.
Because the last time they stuck Evolution on a classic anime, it ended so well.
Yeah.
Well, I think didn't they actually make that particular reference yesterday?
Yeah.
I think so.
I mean, I know I did it.
Yeah, we talked about that as well. Yeah.
Yeah. Did you?
But the thing that kind of strikes me about the whole Mewtwo Strikes Back remake thing, which is apparently what it's going to be, is alright, fine. Let's see what that ends up being, and then I'll make an opinion on it. Obviously, they're going to shove in a load of Gen 8 Pokemon one way or another.
Yeah.
The real thing that stands out to me is, why is the 20th anniversary for Pokemon lasting 4 years?
You know, for the same reason, some people remain 20-something for 4 years.
It does just seem to be. We got to the 20th anniversary and Game Freak went, keep doing this. Let's just do this forever.
Been doing the same. I mean, I remember when they kind of revealed the logo for like the big 15-year event, and then the next year they just reused that, wrote like 16 on it in crayon, and it just went on and on and on until Kingdom Come, basically. I don't know.
It just seems to be an endless merry-go-round of, wasn't the very beginning of Pokemon great, you guys? Let's pretend none of the rest of it ever happened.
Yeah.
They do that because, you know, pandering to the Gen 1ers. Although,
yeah, but
to be perfectly honest, here's one thing I'm kind of interested in.
I think...
Yeah, sorry, go on.
Sorry, I think realistically what's happened is they've discovered that nostalgia baiting makes them a hell of a lot of money. And I think there's an awful not a lot of people, as Go evidenced, that were involved in Pokemon 20 years ago, 15 years ago perhaps, and then dropped out of it. And they're all getting a little bit overwhelmed by the fact that there's 800 and some silly Pokemon, and every year there's a new, you know, event Pokemon that you're expected to care about. And so if you bring it back and just do the original 151 and maybe include a few of the newer creatures in there just for, you know, colour, that works better, I suppose. And it's a weird one, really.
I mean, I get it. I genuinely get it. But
yeah,
it's kind of getting a bit ridiculous at this point. They're looking too far back to actually move forward.
Yes.
Yeah, definitely.
Well, I think that's proven to be their problem overall. I think that's not, you know, that's not just the films, that's the entire franchise.
Yeah.
It's what I was saying this earlier to Demelza, and I'll say it again because I think I believe it. Which is that, believe it. Yes, I'm Naruto now. But if you look at something like Breath of the Wild, and I know this is being held up as an example a lot, and quite rightly so, is they've taken something that's old and beloved and well-known and extremely popular, but really, let's be honest, needed a coat of paint, because Zelda has always had the same kind of thing as Pokemon has, which is that it's always been pretty good, but it's always been pretty samey. You know, you've had sort of two phases of Pokemon, of Zelda, I suppose, where you had the top-down ones up until, what is it, A Link to the Past, and then you had Ocarina of Time, which was a total revolution, and then they just kept making that game. You know, Twilight Princess, Wind Waker, and Skyward Sword weren't necessarily that different to Ocarina of Time. They were just graphically better and had different stories.
Well, Twilight Princess is probably debatable.
Well, yeah. Twilight Princess was an attempt to make Ocarina of Time again. With how well it worked is up for debate, shall we say. Wind Waker did try and do something a little bit different, but the actual gameplay was so similar, and the arc of the plot was very, very similar, and you know, so it was never bad. Like, even Twilight Princess was perfectly playable. There's people.
Hey, teeth is evolving.
Hey, excellent, nice. There's people who, erroneously, but people who think that Twilight Princess is the best Zelda game. They're wrong, but you know, everyone is entitled to their opinion. But it was one of those things where if they just made Skyward Sword again, it would have been fine. It would have been good. But instead, what they did was they had the good sense to say, actually, we need to kind of approach the next game assuming that nothing is sacred. And that's one of the things that's kind of most compelling about Breath of the Wild, is that it really does not hold anything from the games that come before it sacred. You know, it's full of callbacks, it's full of mythological references.
Yeah, I also had a conversation with Demelza about this particular thing. And what I've mentioned was that the fact that I kind of noticed that when they made Breath of the Wild, which is, we were talking about remakes in general, and, you know, bad remakes and good remakes, and, you know, moments where a series attempted to reinvent the wheel, so to speak. And here's the thing with Breath of the Wild, because basically they kind of took Zelda, broke it down to its basic most mythology, threw everything away, and mounted it on Far Cry. Yeah, that's the thing though. They mounted it on Far Cry, but then they actually took all the elements that make the Far Cry open world generic action game experience and gave it a Zelda flavor. They gave it a Zelda twist. They actually introduced all these things in a way that actually works with the new game, and it works. And then you see other games that attempted to reinvent the wheel and didn't work because they kind of either they went too far or not far enough.
Yeah, I mean, the thing with building something like Breath of the Wild is that it was the hardest game design job I think anyone has ever done. You know, taking something that sacred and being so willing to kill your darlings, but also willing to say, okay, I'm going to look at Assassin's Creed, I'm going to look at, you know, as you say, Far Cry, I'm going to look at Horizon Zero Dawn, which wasn't out. The Witcher especially, sorry, not Horizon because it wasn't out yet, but you know, The Witcher especially, all these open world games that came before it, and kind of went, okay, is there anything we can use here? Is there anything that we can genuinely use to make a better Zelda game? But the nice thing about it was that they weren't hung up on tradition. Like, they didn't make it open world, but you still had to go through dungeons and pick up a boomerang and a hook shot and some bombs and everything else. You know, they used them where they worked. Like, you get bombs, you get a boomerang because you can pick it up and throw it at things and it's just a weapon. But you don't have, you know, a hook shot for the sake of having a hook shot. You have the ability to climb instead.
Yeah, and I think the fact that that's Japanese developers doing that as well stands out more than it would.
I just realized what they did. They did a Metroid Prime.
They did exactly do a Metroid Prime. Metroid Prime is another very good example of it, actually. Because it was another... I mean, Metroid Prime was a lot more of a straight transition of the series from 2D to 3D, so it's a kind of an older problem. But it was the same thing. It took the mythology of it, kept that, was very faithful to it, but just generally didn't necessarily stand on ceremony. If something needed to be changed in service of the new game, it was.
They did.
And to bring this right back to where we were talking about, you know, originally, that's something that Pokemon has always been afraid to do.
Yeah.
Pokemon has never, ever, ever been happy to kill its darlings. It's never been happy to change this.
They toyed with it because obviously they got rid of gyms and said,
they did.
Look, we did the thing. We killed gyms.
And we got
basically
trial captains, which are gyms.
The same, but we killed them.
Yeah, but that's the closest we've had, and it was a good thing. I'm not going to complain about them trying.
I mean, to be perfectly fair, we also had completely and utterly underappreciated GameCube games. Well, I say underappreciated.
I think they were appreciated just the right amount.
It's like there was an attempt.
I think there was
Gold Triangle.
I think it was one of those things that because they weren't made by Game Freak, they weren't necessarily... No, you know, Game Freak didn't pay attention to the things they tried in the Ore games. Which, you know, I think you could say is to their own detriment, and, you know, that I think is definitely a matter of opinion. But it's certainly the case where they did try something once, but it wasn't them. And so it didn't last.
It is... To take the discussion all the way back around, it is something that they need to start doing. They need to look at Breath of the Wild and accept the reason why that was such a big critical and financial success.
The only problem is that if they actually do go ahead and just kind of Far Cry the hell out of Pokemon, it's not going to work.
I mean, it doesn't need to be the same thing. It just needs to be
you know, I'm just
new.
kind of... I know, but basically what I'm saying is that Game Freak kind of have a history of looking at things and getting the complete wrong idea about them.
Well, Breath of the Wild exactly got the right idea. And yeah, it's as we say, it's not necessarily... We don't necessarily want to say, okay, go and get a big open world and emergent gameplay and you know, complete freedom and basically no story. It's just more of the attitude that they took towards making the game.
Yeah.
You know, with Pokemon, there's no willingness to try and change things. Like, you look at the current, well, you know, if you look at the internet hive mind, which doesn't represent most people, of course, but you look at the kind of the louder voices at the moment, and they're all saying, "Oh, you changed something, rah rah rah, bad, rah rah rah," you know, despite the fact that Let's Go is the same game underneath. Like, they've changed one thing.
And even what they changed, they haven't really revolutionized.
All they've done is dress it up, really.
Yeah, exactly.
The biggest change in Let's Go, and the only change that actually matters to anything, is the removal of wild battles.
Yeah,
everything else is fundamentally the same.
The only thing they've really done, like in terms of a real, genuine, practical gameplay, you know, change, is Pokemon now appear on the overworld. Even the whole fact that you don't battle them, you catch them instead. It's the same thing, more or less. It's just, you know,
realistically,
it's not...
Let's Go does not change anywhere near enough.
No, I agree. I would completely agree with that assessment. Let's Go had the opportunity, and we talked about this in previous weeks, you know, over and over again, and I've said this over and over again since they were first announced, when we first saw, you know, the initial trailers, which is they have the opportunity to do exactly what we just said, which is to regard nothing as sacred, and kind of go, okay, we've got Kanto, and we've got, you know, Pikachu and Eevee, and we've got a rough sort of sense of nostalgia, but everything else is on the table.
This is Kanto. They would never do that with Kanto.
Well, now we know, you know.
Honestly, though, to be perfectly honest, I think that Let's Go is supposed to be a, for lack of better definition, a transitional fossil, a gateway drug between the Go experience, quote unquote, and the actual Pokemon game experience. So basically, they're like, you know, okay, you've played Go. Now get a taste of what the actual games are like, and if it manages to hook you, well, we've got the real game coming up in 2019.
I mean, yeah, as the point as it is pretty clear now, is that it appeals obviously to the people that played Go. It appeals to the people that maybe only ever played Red and Blue.
Yeah, of which I imagine that number is substantial.
And it also
it's basically
appeals to the people that never played any of them ever, so that they can have that experience of pretty much playing Red and Blue, but in a super beefed up way, which is fine, but we need more. Next year's game has to do a lot more.
Yeah.
At this point, I just hope that next year's game will be good. Just give me a decent world expansion and I'll probably be happy, even if it's the same game. Because, you know, that's the thing with me in Pokemon. I'm not in this for the actual gameplay. I'm in this for the world. And I know I'm not exactly a typical example because, you know...
Well, I am as well. I mean, the thing is, I'm saying just without not the gameplay bit. You know, for me, when I play a game as escapism. I play a game to inhabit a world, which is something that Pokemon has traditionally not been brilliant at, because it hasn't matured past the Game Boy days of you have to use your imagination. You know, you play Pokemon on Game Boy, and it's all black and white sprites, and there's barely anything going on. And now we're in 2018. We have, you know, a comparatively supremely powerful piece of hardware.
Oh yeah.
And we're playing exactly the same thing. This is the thing. Let's Go is a remake of Yellow, which is fine, but it is not changing anything compared to the previous game, because not much has actually changed since Yellow.
Yeah.
Really?
What I actually... And, you know, we've been talking about this particular issue for, like, years now. Remember the entire issue with Generation 6? They were basically, like, you know... the one about the plots, I mean, aside from the game not being...
Oh, yes, gotcha.
Basically the fact that, you know, the whole game was designed with the approach of, well, you know, the meta-game... Swearjar. Don't really care about the actual game, they just want to get back to the eugenics simulator. Let's not make a plot that would take up too much of their time, right? And also, at the same time, the children are never going to even bother. This is the game with children in mind, let's simplify it until it's dumb. And that's how we ended up with X and Y. But here's the thing, I think that the reaction to X and Y was kind of the reason why the Alola games are so heavy on the plots, because, you know, they saw that there was good reaction to Black and White and Black and White 2, and they saw the reaction the plot, quote unquote, from X and Y got. It was like, read the plot here. And I think that basically what happened is that, you know, now that they can actually sort of shift the we have to keep this accessible to the children. Now they can actually shift that to the Let's Go series. They can actually possibly put some effort into the actual game in 2019.
Yeah, that's what I'm hoping for. I mean, it kind of stands out that the only decent example of telling a story in the Pokemon games beyond Black and White and Black and White 2 is the Delta episode in Omega Ruby and Alpha Sapphire. It's the only time they've ever actually told a story about Pokemon in the Pokemon games and done it right.
Well, yeah, I mean, right. It was kind of broken, and I still have no idea what that thing that follows Zinnia around and she keeps referring to as her child. There wasn't kind of a. It wasn't exact. I mean, focus. They didn't write it as well as they could have, but you know, at this particular point, it doesn't really matter because you all know what a Delta episode is. It's about some random Swearjar collecting 7 magical rocks in order to summon a magical green dragon to grant a wish to save the world.
Hang on, I think I've heard this before.
Yeah, I know, right?
But the thing with it is, it's a story. It's about Rayquaza. It's about a human character that actually has a character and has a plot, and it progresses.
Yep.
And
kind of,
it uses Deoxys, a feature Pokemon, a legendary big event Pokemon, actually features it in the story, makes you battle it.
Oh, I love that.
It's a proper story in a game.
I love Deoxys being brought in there.
Yeah, it's the thing with the Delta episode, and I think it's the same. It's one of the few times in the series where the game tells a story that isn't effectively the same one as it was in Red and Blue and Yellow.
Exactly.
Because, and this is the thing, like, I will praise Black and White's writing. I'll praise Black and White's writing until the end of days, because I genuinely think it's the best the franchise has seen so far. Possibly in line with Sun and Moon, depends what you think of it, really. But the actual plot is literally just the best telling of that same story. I'm pretty sure I've said this before.
Definitely.
You know, because you're still fighting the badges. Sorry, still fighting the badges and collecting the gems.
Yes, exactly.
Let's just roll with it.
This is why there's a definite argument to be made for that idea, however it actually works, of having this kind of open world game where you have a world, stories are told within that world through story missions. And you don't have that kind of go to plot A that has a gym, fight that, go to the next one, do that.
Yeah.
You know what I would actually, I was thinking about that, and basically I was thinking that, I would be okay with the sort of linear general plot structure if the game actually encouraged you to explore in the meantime and actually do other things. Sort of like the Metroid games, if you know what I mean.
Yeah.
Metroid has
it's like any open world game out there, to be honest. Yeah. Because Pokemon does have pretensions of being an open world game. It always has. It might be an extremely linear open world, but it's always the intention is always that you go on a journey with your Pokemon and you have the freedom to catch whatever Pokemon, train whatever Pokemon, have whatever adventures you choose to. So I definitely agree with what's been said already, which is that it would be nice to have more stories to tell, and whether that's through the medium of side stories or something else. I mean, basically, just adding quests to the game would make a huge difference.
Oh, it would. Definitely would.
Just anything that takes you off of the standard real tracks. Like, have a quest that involves going to X town and doing Y thing. That's not necessarily just, that's the next thing along, you're going to have to do that to progress through to the next thing and the next thing after that.
Yeah.
Just so long as they don't turn it into collect 50 Ursa Ring tails.
Well, you don't necessarily need to.
I just had a really, really strange thought, you know? Johto is one region that's going to have a real major punch to its face when it does get to the current sort of generation scheme. Because Whitney's entire gym, whatever, is built around Clefairy, which is no longer a normal type in any capacity of the word.
Yeah. They'd have to change. I say they'd have to change that. They probably would just ignore it. They should probably just use it anyway.
I mean, they could change
her
the
into a fairy type
but...
gym leader.
Yeah.
Well, I don't think they're going to actually kill that sacred cow. But I don't know. They could give her a Jigglypuff or something instead. I mean, it's the next best thing, so to speak. It is still a pink normal type, except now it's part fairy, as opposed to being a full fairy.
So, one more thing on the subject of next year's games.
Yes.
So, I think we were talking on this stream last week about next year's games reportedly having a big visual upgrades.
Yes! I've had some time to think about that since.
Today,
go on.
This screenshot came out. This screenshot came out. Give it a second.
It's Twitch.
This is a screenshot of this year's, I think, Yokai Watch 4.
Yep.
Oh, that thing, yeah. I've seen
Yes.
that. I'm actually really impressed with the sort of CGI sort of direction they went with it.
I mean, it's the same studio that makes the Ni no Kuni games, so...
Yeah, I know.
It's level 5, they know how to make good-looking games.
Good-looking emphasis, yeah.
Yeah, I mean, I'm honestly, I'm going to avoid the usual quip about Yokai Watch at this point, because I don't think it's relevant. But
yeah,
if you look, you look at this screenshot, and it's all the little things, really. And I mean, I've spent a little bit of time looking at it. But it's just
okay. I just have one big question.
Go on.
Why is Jibanyan so bepping ripped?
I don't know. I don't really know Yokai Watch, so I know he's supposed to be like a small.
It's a shadow side Jibanyan. This is the whole thing of last year's movie and this year's game, which follows on from the movie directly, in which they've kind of matured it up a bit somehow.
Yeah.
Oh dear.
So this doesn't replace Jibanyan, it's a form with a
non-Nintendo
of Jibanyan.
So it's basically Jibanyan Ultra Instinct.
More or less, yeah.
Or Mega Jibanyan if you want.
What does look nice? What does look nice is that even in this screenshot, which is relatively, I'm going to say static. Yes, of course it's static. It's a screenshot. You know what I mean? Yes. There's still quite a lot going on because you've got this kid running up and down on the side. You've got obviously someone walking up the path next to you. You've got a bit of verticality to the world, which is quite nice. And it's really nice to see kind of the camera swung back behind the player because it really helps involve you a lot more in what's going on.
Yeah,
this is kind of the thing where I feel like this particular kind of style is what we kind of need to see from next year's
I would
game.
be absolutely okay with it if the next Pokemon game looked like this. I mean, I'm curious to see what they mean by this whole graphical upgrade thing. It's something that's been bugging me since they first mentioned it.
Yeah, it's also been bugging me that they said it at all, because they said it 5 minutes after the Let's Go games were announced.
Well, that's what I was saying, wasn't it? When it first happened, I was like, why are they doing this? Why are they feeling the need to talk about next year's game already? I know they announced that it exists because of the perceived and apparently real backlash towards Let's Go.
Yeah,
but
at
it
the
sort
end
of
of the day,
seemed like
announcing it just means, chill your beans, guys.
Yeah.
You just have to wait until next year to see whether or not you deserved to be angry, but...
Yeah, it's a bit of a... hold on to your execute for a little bit longer. But they don't normally follow that up by kind of saying, well, by the way, it's going to be this and it's going to be that and it's going to be the other, because it doesn't matter at this point. Because
by the way, you ain't seen nothing yet.
Yeah.
That's basically what they that's sort of the air I got for that particular announcement.
Yeah.
And, you know, I would love to see if...
all in all, but the real thing, like PD's saying, it just stands out as such an odd statement to make. What does that actually mean?
Because I've been assuming,
no worries,
given the way Pokemon games have always gone before, that it'll be taking a slight change in graphical style. So either they'll be going a little bit more cel shaded, or they'll be going a little bit more sort of black and whitey, I suppose. I can't foresee there being major changes. Like, I think you hear that, and from a lot of other developers or games or whatever, you might be thinking of a fairly drastic visual upgrade.
It's Pokemon, it's not going to happen.
Well, it's not feasible for it to happen.
Yeah, we're not going to get Gears of... Clinks of War, basically. God,
well, I don't think it was ever going to be Gears of War, but it's sort of the difference between...
You know what I mean, though.
Yeah, it's like the transition between Twilight Princess and Skyward Sword / Breath of the Wild.
Wind Waker.
Well, Wind Waker's even more cel-shaded.
Yeah. A more realistic style Pokemon is not necessarily off the cards because they've already done it.
This is true.
It looks... Yeah, and it looks completely and utterly jarring. I mean, to be honest, I mean, it's not like Pokemon is a bad-looking game, but just, I don't know, seeing hyper-realistic textures in those god-awful Sugimori models just does not work too well in my mind.
It depends how they do it.
To be perfectly honest, I mean...
It depends how they do it. If it's just a gentle sort of fur texture, now they've got the resolution to do it.
Yeah,
that's nice. It stands to reason that they're obviously not going to do it if it doesn't work.
Yeah.
So whatever they end up doing, it's going to end up working. There's not been a bad-looking Pokemon game by Game Freak yet. Even Let's Go looks great.
I have to admit that it does, yeah. I mean, I don't really like the chibi-fied to Frill style and how Brock looks like Tyrion Lannister, but
I think it's... I wonder...
They're trying to stick to the Generation 1 sort of proportions, probably.
Yeah, the standout is very much matching that original Sugimori style that you got in the manuals back in the day.
Which was basically him trying to emulate Akira Toriyama, but not really doing a very good job at it. Kind of. Yeah. It's Sugimori. Never mind.
I do have one thought on Let's Go. Let's Go's graphics specifically, which I don't know kind of how firmly I hold this opinion yet, but I think it's the first Pokemon game where I look at a screenshot and I don't have to apologize for it. Like, every game before now has always been constrained by its hardware. You know, it's always been, it looks good for a DS game, or a sprite-based game, or it looks good for the 3DS for a 240p screen.
Yeah.
You know,
I mean, like you said,
sort of
part of that does come down to the fact that even all the way up to the very best 3DS games, screenshots of them always look terrible, no matter how they always did on the thing. But
the 3DS rendered in the resolution where if you get it on YouTube, you know your internet connection needs work. You know, it's not something that's considered a good resolution anymore, and the proliferation of high resolution displays in small devices. You know, we're all walking around with phones with, you know, resolutions sort of 5 or 6 times that of the 3DS. Even if the screens are smaller.
The thing that stands out the most in Let's Go for this is if you look in the battle scenes, like even in the electric plant where Zapdos is being fought, in the lab, Professor Oak's lab, etc. It's just the detail of the room around.
Oh yeah,
that's the kind of detail that's never existed in these kind of games before, but it needs to exist in this because it's going to be on a massive screen.
Yeah, it does, and it's the first time we've really had battle environments. You know, in black and white it was just gradients. Like, it looked pretty nice, but it was just gradients with backgrounds, and they occasionally shifted. You know, for the 3DS games, it switched to having basically skyboxes, so there were 3D-ish backgrounds, but there wasn't necessarily anything in them.
Yeah. Actually, they did have some things in them.
They do kind of, yeah. Well, even in X and Y, they occasionally have
breakable items.
Yeah, which is something I never realised until after I'd finished the game.
Yeah, where did those go after Generation 6?
Well, they got eaten by the need for more graphical power, to be honest.
Yeah, probably.
Like, lots of things went that way, to be honest.
That's actually one thing I would really love to see coming back, and actually it would be really cool if they also had some actual part to play in the battles themselves. I always felt that one of the weaker parts of Pokemon battles was that the environment played basically no part at all in the thing. Even for a turn-based game, like back in the Game Boy era, it was fine. But for hell's sake, it's been 20 years. Do something.
Yeah, I guess something else I was thinking about the other day, which is, if you are talking about killing your darlings, then eventually your attention must turn to the battle system, which is very much Pokemon's sacred cow.
Yeah.
And it's one of those things, like, there was a rumor going around about 6 months ago, oh yeah, they're switching the battle system, it's going to be, I can't remember what the rumor said it was going to be, and it was a complete, of course, but it did spark a bit of a conversation about the battle system and whether it should be changed and whether there'd be any benefit to doing so. And honestly, I don't know.
It's a hard one, isn't it? Because obviously, it's probably after 7 generations, they now have it correct.
They do. They finally finished it.
It now works. So binning it entirely seems like a bad idea. It's basically the only thing I would carry over. Everything else can be completely thrown out. But the battle system is fundamentally unbroken. And
it is,
if you try and fix what's not broken, you'll probably just break it.
Yeah,
and that's what happens with the remakes all the time. So,
but on the
I
same
didn't expect that probably.
Saying that the battle system isn't broken is primarily only talking about one half of the entire thing.
Yeah,
in game, because as far as VGC goes,
the meta is
the entire thing is brilliant.
The meta is the meta, basically. That's
the problem is that it was a meta designed 20 odd years ago for the Game Boy, where the most you were going to do was play a little bit of Pokemon possibly with your friends in the playground. Whereas these days, there's esports, like it's proper esports. There's big tournaments and prize money, and people who are required, not just willing, but required to break it as hard as possible in order to have a chance. And where the battle system is broken is, firstly, I think it's probably too complicated in a lot of ways. I think we've talked about before, where we'd be I think I would be, and I'm pretty sure a lot of people would be quite happy to see IVs scrapped, quite happy to see EVs scrapped, at least in the current form, where getting them is stupid. But just more generally, it's quite difficult to get into. There's an awful lot of stuff that the game never explains to you, which could be fixed by just having the game teach you this stuff. But also a lot of stuff that just doesn't necessarily make... it's complication for the sake of complication, but not necessarily beneficial to strategy, because, like, you take IVs, for example, the only correct IV for competitive is 31 in everything, unless you are, for example, a Trick Room's team, in which case you have 0. There are a few elements where you might not, but by and large, again,
that depends. Even without Trick Room, few particular things, there's a few particular cases where an IV spread might be a different one. The one case that immediately comes to mind is Naganadel, because you might want to have Beast Boost affect its speed rather than its
See, that's one of the very few occurrences where it works, but they are such edge cases as to be...
Well, it's Naganadel, it's all about the edge. I love that thing. I really love that thing.
But it's very much...
drill.
Yes. But it is very much... you are small edge cases, small little things that actually use it in a reasonable way. Everything else is just, kind of broken, really. It's just kind of there's no real challenge to it. It's just a case of, here's a special attacker, you've got to have a 31 IV in special attack here.
But, when you think about it, part of the reason for that is not just the way the system is built. It's also how competitive communities tend to work.
Well, this is where I was...
I was having a conversation with a friend of mine who is, he's an Overwatch player. He's playing a lot. The Overwatch meta is absolutely and utterly awful. It's basically everyone using the exact same teams, and there are actually people who would actively sabotage a game if someone uses a character who's not one of the typical configurations. Like, we're gonna lose anyway. Basically,
yeah.
There's just so much toxic garbage in meta communities that it's not just up to the developers to fix it. That's what I'm saying.
I agree, but I also think Game Freak has been totally negligent in their half of the operation. Like, Blizzard try very, very hard to fix that particular issue. And they will always, they'll always be fighting somewhat of a losing battle because they'll always have their competitive community, forcing this. But then that's why they brought in Brigitte, who totally changed the meta.
I swear I heard that as Vegeta and it was confused for a moment.
Brigitte.
Oh yeah.
I'm not sure if I'm pronouncing the name right, but she's no longer the newest hero, but the second newest.
I know who she is.
The thing here is, though, it's not just Game Freak. In fact, it probably isn't down to Game Freak, because this is exactly the same behaviour that Nintendo does with Smash, in which they pretend like they're fine with it being an esport. They're down with the kids. They go to Evo, but they don't really like it.
Yeah.
Just keep it to that one side, please.
Yeah. And it's always a shame, because I've always thought that there should be like a competitive balancing team in Pokemon, where they've got the in-game team that does the in-game stuff, like it is now, and then they've got a competitive team whose job it is to make sure the competitive metagame works for the people who want to play it. Which, as you can imagine, they're kind of unwilling to do.
Yeah, I mean, to be fair, it took them how long before they actually started patching things?
Well, they haven't yet.
Unless they're completely and utterly broken, yeah.
Like stopping the game from crashing isn't what I would consider a meaningful patch.
Yeah, the thing is that I'm kind of worried that it's very easy to sort of get caught up in this endless... Basically, I'm worried about them going Riot. Never go full Riot.
Yeah, I mean, fair enough. I can't really argue with that, but I also think a little bit of Riot would be alright.
Just a little bit.
The problem is, on the one hand, you have, as you say, Riot. On the other hand, you have Mega Kangaskhan dominating for 2 years.
Oh yeah,
they can't be bothered to change it.
Yeah, that was awful. That was absolutely awful.
Yeah, and in no way, should they, in no way am I willing to accept that as an acceptable thing in a competitive metagame. If this was Mario Party, and we know full well there are no pretensions for it being competitive, then I would be fine. But like Smash, this thing has taken on a competitive mind, a competitive life of its own, and they've got to deal with that fact. They can't get away with they can't stick their head in the sand and ignore it anymore.
Final destination, no items, Mega Kangaskhan only.
Quite
good, scrubs.
Yeah. Melee, a game that people still play because it's completely
Oh.
Damn it. I hate Voltor Flip, and that is why.
Yeah.
Melee obviously was another game that took a life of its own, and it turns out that people like it because it's broken and complain when later games are not similarly broken, so... It's like they spend all their days, they spend an awful lot of time making Smash Ultimate basically Melee but not broken, and then people complain that it's Melee but not broken. Yeah, they say, oh, it's faster, which is good, and it's all this and it's that, and it's great, but I want wave dashing, and I want to be able to fight two foxes underneath the stage. you know, and have a game that only 3 people in the world are skilled enough to use, and only if they have broken controllers. I've ranted about this before.
Yeah.
And it's almost the same thing with Pokemon in a lot of ways, and
See,
it's not necessary.
The thing is that Pokemon doesn't have what Smash has, which is Sakurai. Sakurai actually gives a damn.
Yeah.
He does.
Now, I'm not saying that Junichi Masuda does not give a damn, but he doesn't give a damn about it being competitive.
No, he doesn't. Junichi Masuda is the perfect guy to run the in-game side of things. And that's exactly why I say there needs to be a separate team, whose entire job is to balance the battle system. You know,
which is basically, you know, this is basically why the collaboration between KOL works so well. I'm good at creature design, like, a lot, but I'm competent at the meta, but not exactly very much involved in it. And then you have KOL, who is basically KOL.
Yeah, well, you know, you need someone who, you know, you've got one half of the team which is, okay, we're going to design this really cool, you know, pseudo-legendary, I don't know, psychic water squid thing, I'm not sure. And they go, great, cool, fine, okay, it's really cool, here's the lore, here's what it looks like, here's the Pokédex entries, you know, it's really fun, here's roughly what its stats need to look like, you know, because it's a special attacker or it's a tank or whatever. And then they move it over to the competitive team who go, okay, if we put an extra 5 points in this stat, then it's only going to negate this particular strategy, which we don't want because it's broken. And then they've got the jurisdiction to kind of say, yeah, that Pokemon is broken, fix it, or that Pokemon is too weak, bring it up again. You know, and then it's a collaboration between the two teams to make something that works for in-game and works for competitive, and isn't, you know, the game isn't dominated by one or the other.
See, what it really needs is that it doesn't need to kill the sacred cow of the battle system.
No.
What it needs to do is kill the sacred cow of, these are the Pokemon stats and moves that they've had for 25 years. We're never going to change that.
I've been saying
they have been doing that slowly. I mean, there's a few Pokemon that were completely and utterly useless, and they've really messed around with in a good way. I mean, have you seen what they've done with, say, Masquerain in Generation 7?
They do it to some extent.
Yeah, but Flareon?
Well,
no one's ever gone back and made Flareon not useless, and Flareon is exactly the sort of Pokemon that shouldn't be useless. You know, it may not necessarily be the best tool for its particular job, and that's fine, but it should at least have a fighting chance.
It should at least have a move that it can use that matches its stats, because they changed everything else except its move and its stats.
It does get Flare Blitz, I think.
Eventually, yeah. That's all it gets. The thing with the competitive side of things is that I've often found, and we've talked about this before with Cole, where Cole was talking about how there's a lot of people that try and use what was the example he gave? I think it was like
Thundurus and Raichu.
Thundurus and Raichu, that's it, yeah. Where they do the same job, but until, you know, at that particular point, Raichu did it worse in every way, and people only really used it because they didn't want to use the Pokemon in vogue. So what they really need is to kind of go, you know, there are archetypes in the Pokemon metagame, and there are significantly fewer now than there were 5 years ago, or even more than that, when they were back in the Gen 4 and Gen 5 days, because the whole hyper-offensive thing totally killed Weather, it totally killed Trick Room, it totally killed all the other things that you could do.
Oh, bees.
My god. So when you have these archetypes, and I honestly think they should design them, again, a reason to have a separate team for this, is they should say, okay, we want a, I don't know, bulky special attacker, and we want it to be able to do a certain thing, I don't know. And there should be at least a few Pokemon that can do that particular job. Like, unless it's so niche where the Pokemon is already a gimmick, something like Smeargle or something like Pyukumuku, which, to be fair, is basically Wobbuffet, but not.
See, I don't necessarily mind having gimmicks like that.
No, I like gimmicks. Gimmicks are good.
What I would also like to see is making those gimmicks actually useful.
Yeah,
like,
make gimmicks useful
Shuckle?
and having... Yeah.
Having... people have done some really ridiculous nonsense with Shuckleworths.
Yeah, if you've got enough time and you're going to play around with it in game, I think it can do fairly ridiculous things, but none of them are useful in any meaningful context.
So this is the thing, when it comes to fighting games, even the gimmick characters in a good fighting game still have some kind of purpose.
Yep. At the very least, then there should always be with Pokemon, there should always be options. And, you know, this is just an extended version of what we've been complaining about since X and Y came out, but it's still true in that we look at the competitive side of things, and the same teams appear constantly. And as I think it was Dr. Oak pointed out recently, the Ultra Sun and Moon competitive teams look a lot like the Omega Ruby Alpha Sapphire competitive teams, just with a couple of Ultra Beasts in.
And a Tapu. It's usually a Tapu.
And a Tapu. Yeah, sorry, and a Tapu maybe. So the metagame hasn't meaningfully changed, even with the addition of Z moves and you know, a whole horde of new Pokemon that on paper are powerful enough. They haven't changed all that much.
Pretty much, yeah.
The ultimate dream is that any Pokemon is a competitive Pokemon.
Yeah. Yeah, I think that's
effectively an unrealistic dream, and I'm never going to admit that it's not, but...
The thing is that, yeah, you know, the thing is that basically a lot of the meta Swearjars don't really like thinking about things all that much. Most of them don't even actually play the game. They just pay someone to get.
I think it's an inherent downside of Pokemon being entirely mind games. Like with any given fighting game, you know, there is always an element of skill. You know, in terms of muscle memory, in terms of knowing the character's moves, in terms of zoning and all that sort of thing. You know, and the mind games are a part of a much bigger whole. Whereas for Pokemon, your entire skill level is based on how well you can predict.
Yeah,
that is the absolute top and short. You know, the long and short, and the top and the bottom of competitive Pokemon is how well you can use your team and predict what the other guy's doing. And the only thing a Pokemon team is there to do is to give you options in order to predict. And so when the game changes in that regard, when you have to, you know, find a different set of things to predict, you're changing the entire game. Like, even a single new Pokemon can change the metagames so much in that regard. And that's always going to be the downside of a turn-based competitive game like Pokemon, where, you know, you're using one or two things at a time, and that's...
Yeah.
You know, I mean, your options are relatively limited.
That's right, and that's the main reason why it always ends up coming down to the exact same things again and again, because people have one Pokemon that they see, and then they have to create a counter to that, and then there's a counter to that.
Yeah.
But that effectively it boils it down to playing poker.
It does.
Except that there are more hands in poker to play than there are teams of Pokemon in Nats and Worlds.
Basically, Pokemon.
But it's always been the same thing. Competitive Pokemon, high-level competitive Pokemon, has never been about playing the game. It's been about playing the other guy.
Yep.
And it's much more than, you know, in a fighting game, it's what we were talking about earlier, the, you know, mind, body, and heart thing, I think that was, I was reading about earlier, where Pokemon is just the mind bit, you know. There's no muscle memory, there's no skill involved in the actually playing of the game, because it's just pushing buttons, and that's fine. That's the point of it. You know, it's not. This isn't a criticism of it, but what it does mean is it limits you so much in the variety of things you can do. You know, in any given moment in a Pokemon battle, once you've gotten into it and you've got, you know, your Pokemon sort of fighting the others, is you have 4 moves and the ability to switch, and that's all you've got. And that's both the real, you know, genius and real benefit of Pokemon, but it's also the reason it's so samey.
Yeah, kind of.
Because, like, just to wind this way back, That's why the current battle system for Pokemon is perfect for in-game, because despite all the complications which you can ignore in-game, you know, no one cares about nature's IVs, EVs, even things like weather aren't that important. You know, same type of attack bonus is useful if you know about it, but you can get away without if you don't. You know, it's just your Pokemon, four moves, and the other guy's Pokemon, and you know, a type effectiveness chart where if you know it, you know where to switch and like what to switch to and that sort of thing. Whereas for competitive, there isn't. The weird thing is, it's both overcomplicated and there isn't enough to it at the same time. You know, it's overcomplicated insofar as getting into it is difficult, but the actual playing of it is relatively limited. There's very little you can do. It has the same problem as Hearthstone, actually, where, you know, in a fighting game, your character pick is a huge part of it, but you can also, you know, at any given moment, you have 20 to 30 different things that you could do. You know, there's a thing called a mix-up in fighting games. The whole point of that is to, you know, give you variety in what you're able to do and how to force your opponent to adapt to that. Whereas in Pokemon, the only real mix-ups are trying to figure out what the other guy is thinking and exploit it. And if you can do that well, then you can go to Worlds. But you won't gain any particular benefit from team building. You just kind of bring yourself up to the correct level, as it were. You know, you stand to lose by having a suboptimal get team. You don't stand to gain by having, you know, a different or varied team. At least in the current metagame, anyway.
I mean, every once in a while you still get surprises when people who actually know how to work.
Yeah, I mean,
manage to pull something that surprises the hell out of everyone. See also Sage and Park.
Well, yes. I mean, Sage and Park's final battle was, well, it was 2014, wasn't it? Yeah, we're still talking about it 4 years ago, which is kind of
yeah,
4 years later, which is kind of the big deal. But that was the real, what we want to see in Pokemon more often, and what the battle system doesn't necessarily lend itself to, is this whole being able to mix things up, being able to kind of try something new and succeed with it. Because there's very little opportunity to do so, despite having 800 and some Pokemon to choose from.
And I think that, you know, yeah, again, part of it is definitely by design, but a big part of it is by competitive Swearjaws, being competitive Swearjaws.
Well, I agree. I mean,
you know, not trying anything, because why should they try anything?
Well, if they thought they had something to gain, they would try it.
But they don't.
Yeah. Which is, kind of to wrap this particular extended line of thought up, you know, that is the failing of the Pokemon battle system as it pertains to competitive. You know, it was never designed for the level of play for which it is being used, and I don't know how you'd fix that. I really genuinely don't. You know,
there is much of a way to fix it, really.
So I don't necessarily like. You can view the fact that it boils down to people having approximately the same 10 or 12 Pokemon.
Yeah.
Across the entire competitive arena, but I mean, it's the same in the TCG. People end up having roughly the same star Pokemon in their decks, down to about a dozen or so. It's the same in fighting games. You'll always have, out of 20 characters, the same 12 or so. There'll be a pool of them. There'll always be some that aren't in it, but there'll be a wide selection of it. Pokken is, it's actually fairly open for fighting games, but it still comes down to just what's there. The thing that all of those do, as they wear on, fighting games, they move on to the next fighting game in the series, and there's entirely new characters in it. Characters that were in it before have completely changed. The TCG, it rotates out every year. Stuff that was in it before is gone. Stuff that comes into it changes everything up. None of that happens in VGC, and you can see it from the most recent teams, which, like we said earlier, are pretty much the exact same teams that have been going around since Black and White.
Yeah,
literally.
Yes, honestly, I mean, the only way you could do anything like that is completely reinvent a few Pokemon, like through a new regional form or whatever, and just restrict the tournament to just those. And it worked fine in like Black and White because, you know, there was a fair amount of good new Pokemon you could build a team just using those. I have yet to manage to do that ever again.
I thought what they did with Black and White, not only for competitive, but actually for the main game, where they obviously limited it to just the Gen 5 Pokemon in a way to kind of evoke that feeling of the very first ones. But the way that it worked for competitive, it forced a shake-up. It was a rotation. They need to do that again.
It almost feels like something that they should be doing either every year or every to go down that route, is have a pool of Pokemon that you can choose, but it's different every time.
Exactly.
And, you know, if, let's say, Mega Kangaskhan, you know, if it didn't get patched, yeah, it might work beautifully for 6 months or a year or whatever, but it wouldn't work again because you wouldn't be able to use it. Or they'd introduce something deliberately through the natural process of changing out these selections that would totally wall it.
I mean, look at Pokemon Go. It's kind of a sidebar when you think about it competitively, but we'll get back to it in a second. And this will be the final thought because we need to end after this.
And it knows the time.
If you look at Pokemon Go, what it's done in introducing the new generations is it effectively has a rotation of the Pokemon available in it, which limits what's currently available. That only really comes down to what you can capture at the time. But if you did that for what you could battle with, if you said, this is your Pokedex for this season of Pokemon, it's got 150 odd Pokemon in it across the 800 odds that are available. There's some legendaries, there's some fairly strong Pokemon that you would know and expect, like Garchomp, Dragonite, etc. There's some left field Pokemon, you can try them, see what happens. There might even be a couple novelty Pokemon in it. But if you limit it down to that specific group, and just say, this is what you've got, go off, see what you come up with. Even if people came up with pretty much the same teams, it would at least be different for that year.
Yeah.
You evolve Kadabra to Alakazam by trading it.
Yes. Yes, you do.
Although, if you're talking about Pokemon Go, presumably just to see it, presumably just candy.
I think it is just candy, yeah.
Yeah, just shove a bunch of them into a meat grinder and feed them to the...
You release them to the professor, who gives you candy in return.
Yeah.
There's nothing else reward.
It's kind of like, they're sent out to the pastures, which are by no means the glue factory.
Don't use an emulator then.
Yep. It's the only real answer to that one.
Pretty much.
But I suppose like final thought on the whole battle thing, competitive battle thing. I don't know. I mean, like, I think the solution is... I don't think there is an easy solution. I think the rotating the available Pokemon is definitely one of them. It's actually one of the things I was saying to Developers earlier about was this would cause riots, and rightly so. But I almost wonder if the Pokemon games could be, if they'd make their own lives easier and therefore the game's better for us, if they did what Digimon does and they didn't necessarily have every single Pokemon in every single game.
I mean, they do that in-game, but they don't really limit it competitively.
They don't. Well, they still have to implement and support all, and obviously at this point 800 odd Pokemon. But competitively, they have to implement it in terms of just being able to trade them in and play the game. And doing that in a way that, like, what they're doing with Let's Go, at least to start with, which is 151, and that's your lot. If they tried doing that on a long-term basis, it would totally kill the... it's a long-forgotten, long-dead dream, but still one that underpins the franchise, which is the ability to catch them all. and have, you know, a team drawn from the entire roster of Pokemon, and be sure that you can always play it. You know, you can take your, I don't know, your Charizard that you got when you were 5 years old and you first played, I don't know, let's do this simply, maybe Heart Gold SoulSilver. You can play with that Charizard in Ultra Sun and Moon. You know, you can trade it up. It's a bit of a rigmarole, but you can do it. If a game came along and they were like, okay, we're only going to support the regional decks, so here's 250 Pokemon, and we're going to be able to, you know, reanimate them, or really kind of completely rechange their stats, or whatever it is they choose to do with them, that's fine, but you'll never be able to use that Charizard.
You mean like Let's Go?
Like Let's Go, yeah. But Let's Go is not going to be the end of that. You know, so Let's Go is not going to be the start of that being a regular thing.
No. Well, I wouldn't see it as having a place in the actual game.
No, definitely not.
I see it as an option for at least giving competitive a kick up the arse. But
I think so. Yeah. I think a lot of what they fall over on is just the need to support all these Pokemon, and so that would be a way to address that particular problem. But I don't think it's one that would work, and I think it is one that would be, you know, if you look at the sacred cows and you try not to have them, there are a few things that you've got to stick to. You know, Zelda had its mythology, it had the Triforce, it had the Master Sword, even though it, you know, wasn't something that just got handed to you in the plot for the very first time. But it was a case of, yeah, you have Link and you have Zelda and you have Ganon. You can't get rid of those, or at least they decided you can't get rid of those. And in Pokemon, you can't get rid of Catch 'em All, even if, say, it's something that's not been attainable easily anyway, or necessary, you know, something that they've put much emphasis on for years and years and years. It's still something that underpins the franchise, and I think always will.
Yeah.
Even if they eventually crack the 1,000 mark for Pokemon, you know, there will still be the ability for someone, if they have enough time and they have enough motivation and they have enough Pokemon games, to catch every single one. They can't really get rid of that.
No.
But it does mean they are always having to support, at least in an in-game, put it on your team and play with it, you know, aspect, all of those Pokemon. So
it's just a pity they're not actually doing that for Let's Go.
Yeah, honestly, yeah. And I think that's going to be one of the big things. It's going to be interesting because it is the first Pokemon game that will permanently break full backwards compatibility in a very, very long time, because even stuff like X and Y and Sun and Moon, they didn't have that to start with, you know, for the first couple of months of their life, longer in X and Y's case, because we know what happened to Bang. You know, you couldn't pull your old team in, but there came the point where you could. Whereas Let's Go, I don't think we'll ever get that. You're not ever.
Let's Go is not supposed to get that. It's a completely different series. Like
exactly.
It's like trying to import your main team into Wrecking Ranger. I don't know. Sorry, I just kind of. I managed to come up with something that would evade a swear jar and kind of fell into the swear jar.
That's alright. It's fine. You changed a vowel. It was enough.
Yeah.
But yeah, it's a tricky one. And I think, as Dr. Oak very rightly points out, it is one of those things where you do have the competitive side, you know, clashing with the in-game side. And I think if you did limit it solely on the competitive side, just for the, you know, quote-unquote ranked battles feature, whatever that might end up being called, that would probably help, certainly. I do wonder if it's sort of sticking a bandage on the problem a little bit rather than actually solving it, but it does give you a lot more flexibility in terms of forcing people to not use the same 6 Pokemon every year.
Yeah,
just
basically
doing
the yeah.
They already kind of do it. They kind of already do it, don't they, with the online tournaments, because they do the themed ones. Well, you know, like the Monotype Electric one they did recently, I think.
They're still doing those. I mean, they still have different rule sets for each of the online sort of tournaments, which is nice, and it does kind of shake things up a bit. But it's still like within the Wi-Fi biosphere rather than actually leaking into the big organized tournaments.
Yeah, it's not. It doesn't happen at the highest levels of play, and I think
so. They probably should do something like that just to make things more.
I think that's the argument being made.
I guess,
and I certainly agree with
exactly. Basically, what I'm worried about is the fact that you've got a few very, very different. You've got several different player bases which are very, very different about what they want games and brands are, and you simply cannot please all of them at the same time. It's not going to happen. It's just not possible.
No, I agree.
It doesn't really need to be perfect. There just needs to be a solution in the future.
Yeah, I think the nice thing about it is you can silo off the competitive side from the in-game side, and not necessarily negatively affect the other, if you know what I mean. Like, if you turned around and said, yeah, you can only use these 60 Pokemon and we're going to choose them for this season of Pokemon play, that's not going to stop people from using, Pokemon that aren't those in-game if they choose to, or in local battles with their friends. It just means that they have to be a little bit more creative about how they approach the competitive side and actually care, honestly. Like, the VGC rules are set up so that basically everything goes except Pokemon that they know will break things, because, the Ubers, and except things that are obviously broken. And that's it. They don't actually put any more effort into it than that, which is a shame.
And on that happy note...
Yes. We really like Pokemon, believe it or not.
Yeah. We do.
Like, we do.
Honestly, it's because we love it. We kind of snark it to death.
Yeah, I mean, we rag on it because we've all been fans of this franchise for, going on 20 years. Yep. We care about it. We want it to do well.
What's a bit of armchair game design between friends?
Yeah, leave it to us. We'll fix the whole thing.
Alright, that's it for tonight. Come back tomorrow for more.
Yes, we'll go back to Univert. We will fight another Sigilif and hopefully win.
We can only hope.
We can hope. We'll see if we can get bodied by random Pokemon again. Alright. It's been fun, guys. See you soon.
Bye.
Laters.
We'll be right back.